What is going on, everybody? We are back again for Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here. We flip the lid on the stories that have shaped some of the most significant, successful people creating impact in this world. And I had the pleasure of meeting the individual that's joining us today not long ago. We met through a mutual contact, and I got to come onto his podcast. And it was one of those times where you just connected. I connected at a deep level and felt this resonance with this individual in a way that I was like, we're going to be doing some cool stuff together. So it wasn't long before, I think he was already booked on my show by that time, but I said, hey, dude, if you're not, you better get on this show quickly because we need to continue the fire and the collective impact together. And Rob Stein is with us today, and I'm going to just introduce based on what my experiences of you, not what your bio is, brother. When I introed with Rob, he is dynamite in terms of energy. He doesn't lack in vibration and frequency, but he leads with heart. It's very obvious the way that he invests in people and connects. And his success in multiple different capacities in his life and the level at which he's pushed himself gives him the perspective to really understand that everything is possible. And it truly is impossible to fail if you understand how to get yourself the fuck out of the way. And so Rob is a master of not only having done this in his life multiple times, but successfully guiding and leading other people and organizations to do the same. And he does it all with heart and with connection. And so I'm really excited to jump in with him today. Rob, how you doing, brother?
Dude, Brian, I am honored and humbled with that intro, bro. Thank you so much. I felt that same exact connection when you were on my show just a few weeks ago, and it's just a blast to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Dude, I'm so excited. So I would really love it if you would just give us a description of who you are in your words.
Absolutely. I'm a multi-business owning entrepreneur that has started multiple businesses completely unrelated to each other, getting better as I go. The first one, it took the longest, really figuring it out. But then as I kind of perfected my own framework, things just kept getting better. I think it's a good classic story of if I can do it, anyone can do it. I used to grow up with a great family, very loving, tight-knit family. I'm a musician by nature and started out teaching middle school music. And that was what I thought I was going to do for 30 years and have the pension and the bennies and, what our parents, rightfully so, told us, that was the path. But I realized that was not the path for me. And they've always been very supportive and launched my first business in the music composition and publication space to the point where I built it up over about 8 years, quit my teaching job, did that. And then I was kind of at a low point in my health and I decided to turn that around and kind of using the same framework that I really used to launch that business. I got my health under control and went from being real out of shape to an award-winning natural competitive bodybuilder. And then decided, hey, let's move halfway across the country and open a real estate company. So we did that, and we've been very relentless in our pursuit. When I say we, I mean my wife and I, because we started that together. And then most recently, over the past year and a half, opened a new branch of mindset and sales coaching. I've always been an educator by nature, I think, which is why I gravitated towards teaching. And I really thrive, helping people that want to learn. The guy I used to be that people are like, man, it's not a work ethic issue. I am ready to work. I just need the direction. I need my mind opened to lead me to the actions that I'm going to take to accomplish new things. And that's absolutely my passion. And I'm very grateful that I get to make a living doing that and helping other people.
Yeah, I love even how you describe that because I think it's interesting. You and I probably have a very, very similar target, right? And what I mean by that is that the individuals that we probably resonate most deeply with when we work with them. You were very clear in saying, no, I'm not teaching you how to work. I'm not going to teach you what to do, how to be disciplined, or how to go in the basic elements of communication, marketing, and sales. I'm not going to get into the basics of It's like, no. You've reached a level of success and you're looking for more in life. And you realize that more isn't going to be filled with just money.
That's 100% right. Well said.
And so I love exactly how you said that. Now, I'm going to challenge you just a little bit though, because this is going to be a friendly piece here. Yeah. I asked you to tell us who you were and you told us all about what you did, bro. No, yeah. You told us about who you support and some of the who's in your world. So it was totally integrated. It's not like it lacked depth.
Right.
But what I really identified with as well is when we first met, the first thing you said to me is, I'm a husband and father. Those words led, before anything else. And so in this particular case, what I just want to ask is, husband and father is, I think, so much of who you are and one of the roles and identities you play. The multi-business successful entrepreneur and coach is a way that you've allowed who you are to manifest into the what you're doing in the world, which is so freaking beautiful. But take a second and give us more on that personal side. Like, who are you and how do you operate from the inside out?
Yeah. And, I guess when I think about it, I identify a lot of what I do with who I am. I think because it is an extension of myself. I view that as an extension of myself. But it's for sure, first and foremost, I am a husband and father. I have a beautiful, endlessly supportive wife, Katie, who one of the many reasons that I love her so much is we have a very similar outlook in how we choose to perceive the world and take control of what we want, whatever that is, personal or, business wise. And we are, I can't, she is my heartbeat. I can't imagine life without her. We really are soulmates for sure. I know that might be a cliche thing to say, but it's true. It's a scientific fact that we are. And so really the reason, when people say, what's your why? Katie and our daughter, Lily, who's almost a year and a half old, they are my why. And my relentless pursuit of building this stuff is so that I can achieve the financial stability to really just spend as much time with the family as possible. I think our purpose here on life, at least for me, is to, make memories with our loved ones. And in order to be able to do that at a high level, it does take a certain level of financial freedom to dedicate enough time to really do that intentionally. So that's really where we're at. And it's an amazing thing to have worked to the point where we're really achieving that why together as a family. I still get to work from home, and the Katie and Lily will come in during the day and we'll get to hang out. I just had lunch with them, and then I got to come back here into the office. So, who I am is for sure a husband and a father first. And that definitely bleeds into everything I do, because that's why I do what I do. I've always been gravitated towards discipline and structure, which is why I think I took well to bodybuilding. And that's kind of been the staple of, I think, how I operate.
Dude. So thank you for taking us down that path, because truly, that's why I was saying, you lead with heart, man, and you are doing so many incredible things in this world. But we had a deep conversation about the connection with our wives when we first connected. And I have a deep understanding for what you say around soulmates. I've been exploring a slightly different philosophy, and it's interesting. It's coming to me through my consciousness and meditation coach. But she has this concept of what she calls soul contracts. Like, we have contracts sometimes for ourselves, or contracts connected to another soul, that our purpose, our life, our rhythm is meant to really align with them. She's done a lot of some of the historical work in really analyzing some of the more woo-woo sides of interpretation with numerology and multiple different belief systems to look at the fact that my wife and I truly probably have a soul contract, and that we're here to be doing something together. But it wasn't always so easy to do so. And I know that we had to learn how to integrate, and you said it in your first answer when I asked you who you were, about how important she was as your partner and driving, and the way that you guys are running side by side and what you're building and the impact. Talk about the journey it took to get you guys into the right rhythm where you could integrate life holistically together, because that's a tough thing to do.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. When really, as soon as we got together, we had this inseparable connection. We would go out of the way to be together. When we got together, we were still both living with our parents respectively, but we'd stay, our parents were super supportive, a couple nights at one person's house. And then we would have we were, sleeping in a twin bed, and then eventually we had a queen air mattress that we would just kind of deflate and bring back and forth between the house. We just really had to be together.
Yeah.
And so we always had that, she really is my best friend. And I know that is the same for her. So when we got more into the career-wise, right, because I had just finished college, she was still going through college. So I was working as a teacher and she was going through school, and we really supported each other there. She got her teaching degree shortly after that. And when she got her first teaching job, I was at the point of transitioning out of teaching. And her teaching stability was kind of the last thing that allowed me to do that. And we had a good rhythm. You know, she would go to school and crush it at school. She was teaching in one of the top districts in the country, graduated top of her class from the College of New Jersey before that. And I was running my music business. Once we both started doing real estate, well, actually, no, let me rephrase that. Fitness was actually the first time we really kind of started gelling in a new way together. Because we both used to be overweight, and then we kind of got fit together. And after my first year competing, she got the bug and we did a show together.
Oh, cool, bro.
That was really cool because I got to coach her through that. And I always knew she was a very relentless type work ethic, but to do any type of like physique competition, the prep for that.
It's another level, man.
It really is. It's one of the hardest things I think anyone can ever do because it literally fights every basic instinct as a human being that you have because your body literally thinks it's dying when you get to that point. So both of us pushing ourselves mentally, physically, and still being able to have a good functioning relationship. That was pretty awesome because some people, you know, when they go on prep, you know, the hormones get weird, you get real grumpy, you get irritable.
It's real.
It is, but we still really supported each other. She won her class. She did outstanding. Once we went into entrepreneurship together, that was a whole new level. So originally, when we got into real estate, my dad's been in real estate his whole career. And I went with him to a seminar just to kind of have some father-son time together. But I really fell into real estate, started getting more involved in it with him. Katie was relentlessly supportive as she always is. And then my dad's coach at the time called me personally and invited me to come to his like ultra intensive investor boot camp. And he was like, Katie really needs to go too, because she needs to know kind of what you're doing so she could really have, you know, grasp it. And I asked her to come, and always incredibly supportive. She was like, you know, like I'm personally not into real estate, but you are, and I see what you're doing for the family, and I support you. So I'm going to go to support what you're doing for us. And by the end of the 4 days, she was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I'm all in. We're going to do real estate full time. And she totally got that real entrepreneur bug that I think was always in her, but just kind of waiting for the right vehicle. And so when we moved here and launched our business together, now she got her real estate license while she was still teaching. And getting a real estate license in Texas is the hardest, longest state to do it. So she really dedicated herself to it. And she just dove right in head first, and we started working together. And it took both of us some time to realize like who handles what aspect of the transaction. But man, once we got into our groove, it was really, really incredible to be able to do like all aspects of life together. And that's why we moved here, to like spend all our time together, because when she was teaching and I was still writing music all day, we still only had a few hours a day together. And we were like, this is not acceptable. Like we have too good of a thing going on to just spend that limited amount of time together. And so even though it was on the other side, it was extremely challenging because we were new agents in a new city. It took us like 7 months to get paid. And there were some really dark times when we were like, man, did we make a huge mistake? Why did we move 2,000 miles from, you know, you had a job? Like, oh my God, what did we do? And so to be able to go through those dark times together, but we were both equally committed to maintaining a positive mindset and pushing each other. It wasn't like one of us was like, this sucks, I have to quit. And the other one was like, no, we both were like, failure's not an option. Just do whatever it takes. And so going through that together and really launching a business together that is allowing us to fulfill our life purpose of like just being together as much as possible. That was really, really special and really unique, and something that I'm grateful we had the opportunity for, you know. And because of that, we were able to build things to the point where when we had Lily, you know, about a year and a half ago, you know, we don't have to do daycare. You know, she could be a full-time mom, and that's what we were passionate about. So, but none of that would have been possible if she wasn't equally as committed. So it was really amazing to do like life and business together.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. I was literally sitting on the gym floor last night with my wife. We were doing some nighttime stretches and just having some conversations. And both of us ended up in tears because we feel like we finally have created that rhythm for ourselves in our life in a way that we've been trying so hard for 16 years. It took us a lot longer to find it. And probably because I was carrying a lot more trash from my past than I was proud of and created a lot of damage. But it's been really cool because one of the things I've always enjoyed about business and entrepreneurship is you get to build and create. It's kind of like a playground.
Yeah.
Right? But
Yeah.
I think when people are used to living in a structured role where there's an exchange of value from a monetary sense in exchange for your time or effort or production, right? It's really difficult for some people, I think, to see their value, see their worth, and understand it at a deep level. I know that was what my wife struggled with. And what she articulated to me last night, and what I heard in your wife, which is so beautiful because you curated it, gave the opportunity, is she had a chance to apply her natural charisma, her focus, her discipline, her ability to lead and teach, all of the elements of creativity that get involved in it. And to your point, she gets her entrepreneurial bug.
Yeah.
Right. My wife is experiencing that for the first time. Like, she's having fun building, having fun creating together. And the way we've built our rhythm in life, it's been really, really beautiful. And so I loved hearing you talk about that transition and what that looks like for you guys right now in your life. I know that you have this concept of it's impossible to fail. What does that mean to you?
So that phrase, came up kind of when I engaged a marketing team to help me write my first book, which I just finished, and it's editing coming out shortly. And we were just kind of thinking of the title and the concept. And I said something like, I've just always wanted to set it up for myself that it's impossible to fail. And then we kind of ran with that. And really, it starts with the tenet that I believe failure is only failure if it's permanent. And a lot of times, there is something to be said for fail forward. You fail your way to success, like, for sure. Excuse me. But when it comes to, because failures, I think failure, when I think of what that word means, I think it has more of a sense of finality to it. Mm-hmm. If you say, I have failed at something, that's like a finishing, like, it's done. It's done. That aspect is done, right? But anything anyone has developed a high level of skill at, for example, with me, becoming first a professional musician or bodybuilding or real estate or whatever. If you were to ask me, Rob, would you consider yourself a failure at that thing? I would say, of course not. Yet I made a ton of mistakes along the way and faced an incredible amount of obstacles and had many times when we almost failed, but didn't. And so really it's experience. It's just experience, because that's the only way you get better at anything. So that it starts with the tenet that unless you quit, which sometimes you're like, hey, you know what, this just didn't work out. But unless you quit, you haven't failed. So it starts there. The second part of it is through building multiple businesses and coaching other people, I have developed what I believe to be a framework that is, if you apply it, it starts with getting the right, it's basically I'll give you the bird's eye view. Number one, it starts with getting the blueprint. So you're trying to start a business, you're trying to do some entrepreneurial thing. You likely don't have experience in it. So the first thing you need to do is find someone that's done what you're trying to do at a very high level and has a track record of teaching other people how to do it. Because they're going to tell you all the things to do right, all the mistakes they made that you can avoid, the fastest way to success. Cool, you got the blueprint. And it starts there, and then it's just a basic structure of implementation. How to have the right mindset that you can take the disciplined actions every day to form the right habits, how to structure your schedule, how to think long game, how to set accurate goals. So it's really the framework of discovering what do you want to do, getting aligned with the right education, and then learning how to implement it. And I believe if you do all of those things with massive action, relentless consistency, and time, it is literally impossible to fail.
Yeah. Take us back to a moment where you thought you were about to fail or you were in that darkness.
Yeah.
Describe that time to us. What was going on inside? What was going on outside? And how did you move through it?
Yeah. So I would say for sure, the very first thing that always comes to mind is, as I said, Katie and I, we moved here to Austin, Texas from New Jersey, born and raised in New Jersey. So Austin, Texas is one of the hottest real estate markets in the country, over 20,000 agents in a relatively small amount of space. And so we were fighting being new agents in a new city. So number one, you're an agent who knows zero people. Well, you have no sphere of influence. You have, so that's an obstacle. And then it's just the fact that being a real estate agent is really hard. You have to learn the techniques. So even if you have a lead come to you, if you don't know how to talk to them or how to convert them, you're still not going to succeed yet. And so especially having the, kind of the emotional weight of like making a conscious decision for her to quit her job. She had an amazing job. She was on the brink of getting tenure. She was making, 65, 66 grand a year. And in New Jersey, by the way, teacher health benefits are like the Rolls Royce of health benefits. We never paid a dime. I never even thought about health benefits because everything was literally covered.
Yeah.
And we were like, hey, let's leave that cushy paycheck and those great benefits and go be completely self-employed in a brand new thing in a brand new city. And so there's the weight of that, because we had a whole lot of, oh my God, what are you doing? Like literally.
So tell us more about that. You call it emotional weight. What were you feeling? What were the two of you feeling in those times?
So we were feeling, I don't think regret, but we were feeling, like heavy fear, like super fear. Like, wow, we really messed up. We had a really good thing going and we don't know if it's going to work out. Uncertainty, hesitation, maybe a little bit of remorse. And, we would get what we call the open house blues, where we would do an open house. You spend time setting up the open houses, and then we would get back, we go to the open house and we're all excited and like no one comes. And we're sitting on the couch, like staring at each other with tears in our eyes. Like, what did we do, man? Like, what did we do? We talked about maybe Katie going to interview for a teaching job, which she did. She started interviewing for teaching jobs again. Because we were just living out of our savings account, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And so we had this lofty dream that we were like, yeah, let's do it. And for like 6 months, we were like, oh my God, it's not working. It's not working. And we kind of reached, it was just one of those times when we were on the couch, just like, oh my God, we got back from the open house. We didn't get anything from it. And we just kind of mutually said like, failure is not an option. We just have to keep going. And so in that instance, if you look at the 3-part formula of like massive action, relentless consistency, and time, I would say it wasn't a massive action issue because we were the textbook definition of massive action. And it wasn't a consistency issue. It was just time.
Yep.
Just needed to give it more time. And how many times are you 3 feet from gold and have no idea? How many times are you around the corner from your biggest breakthrough and you have no freaking idea that you're right there? And we just had faith in ourselves and our work ethic that failure is not an option and we're just going to keep going. And shortly after that, maybe a couple weeks after that, some clients, well, not clients at the time, but people we'd been nurturing that we met at open houses, had reached out and been like, hey, we're ready to work with y'all. And we wound up getting our first 3 transactions. About a month later, those first 3 transactions closed, coincidentally all in the same week. And we made almost 50 grand in a week. So at that moment, it was like, that was kind of the proof of concept that gave us the faith and the confidence to say like, we can do this. Like we have the ability to do this. Now we just need to learn how to do this more consistently and scale and really network. And so that was a huge bump in motivation and confidence to like start taking things to the next level. And before you know it, I started a team a year later. Within my second year of being an agent, became in the top 5% of agents in the country. And now wrapping up my 4th year as an agent, my independent brokerage is in the top 5% of brokerages in the country. And it might be easy to look at kind of, if you're watching this video, you see my success iceberg up here. So it might be easy to see this big thing floating on top and be like, oh, wow, look at that. That must have been easy. And it wasn't, because we were on I would say the brink of failure, because we really did consider quitting because it just wasn't working. Yeah. But, we didn't. And I think the biggest difference, and there's kind of a misconception out there that I think that successful people never have stress and they never have obstacles, right? I know.
Oh, no, I don't ever feel that.
Yeah, ever, right? But the reality is we all have the same fears and inner cynic and doubts and hesitations. The difference is that people that ultimately get what they want don't let that stop them. They don't let it be permanent, and we take action anyway. And it all came together.
Yeah. Well, our belief is that the singular thing keeping people stuck is that internal trash from their past that they're still carrying and holding on to. And, you just demonstrated very clearly not only your concept of it's impossible to fail if you view failure through a lens of time, right? And not absolute. I talk in the same way. It's incremental failures on the progress to where you're going are completely different to catastrophic shutdown. You guys could have literally quit 2 days before and been like, we're fucking done. We're not going to do this real estate thing anymore. It's not going to happen. And a difference of 2 days. Even though you had 6 months of consistency, 6 months of massive action, that 2 days could have been the difference between completely going into failure and reverting back into where you were before versus opening up to all this opportunity. And it takes a lot of faith. It takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of self-awareness to navigate moments like that. And I, as you know, have really understood the inside about how shame and fear and guilt and anger and all these things can shape us and understand. I'm really curious because in bodybuilding, I actually think that bodybuilding and physique competitions are the most subjective, non-objective, and most judgmental sports to be a part of, right? It's common for people who reach high levels to have deep internal darkness, and that's part of what they're covering and what their external persona looks like. What I'm really fascinated about is you talk about the human experience, the dynamic and the consistency and everything you've patterned together. How did that translate when you were in training? You obviously won. You got your wife to be able to place and win and put herself in a good position. What was the emotional, physical versus mental dynamic that factored into that process for both of you?
First, I'll say I agree with you 100%. And one of the reasons, I mean, I stopped competing just because I needed a break. And really, to do it right, it is a very selfish sport. I mean, everything in life has to take a back seat because it's 24/7, meal timing, cardio, working out, all that stuff. And there are definitely, I would say, in my opinion, the majority of competitors, like the physique competitions and that aspect of their life, like defines who they are, like they need it. I didn't need it. It was more of a journey and a vehicle for a little bit. So, I mean, for me, I went my whole life being, when I was a kid, and this was for sure part of it, I'm sure, when I was a kid up until about 6th grade, like I was real fat and I got made fun of for it a lot. And then, middle school, high school, I lost some of that baby weight and kind of, I wasn't like ripped or had a good physique, but I wouldn't say I was fat. And then after college, when I started, teaching, I just had a very sedentary lifestyle. I was very busy, but I was very sedentary and I didn't know how to eat. And I just got really big. And so I go my whole life.
Define really big. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So I'm 5'4", not a tall dude. Okay. And I got
I've been on screen with you twice. I thought you might be a little short, but I wouldn't have guessed 5'4", bro.
5'4". I'm a towering 5'4". Yeah. And so I got up to about 210 pounds.
Oh yeah.
At 5'4" with no muscle. Like it was like I was breaking a sweat going up 5 steps. I had to hold my breath to tie my shoes. It was really
for the visual. That's important for people to understand because looking at you today, you'd never guess, right?
Right. But it got to that point. And so, one thing I talk about in my mindset coaching is like, I'll usually say something like, raise your hand if maybe you look, let's say if I'm talking to real estate agents, you see some agent that's crushing it. They're closing 5-6 deals a month and they drive the fancy car and you see all their social media posts and you look at them and you just think to yourself, you know what? They're just blessed with some X factor that I don't have. They just have something that I don't. They were born with it. I'm never going to have it. And I just have to accept that. And slowly, I'm like, come on. And by the end, all the hands are in the air because we've all felt that. And that's how I felt about my body. Like I remember being in elementary school when I don't think they do this anymore, but they did like talking about baggage from the past, they did the presidential fitness exam, right? I was always dead last place in the mile. You got some naturally skinny kid who can do 12 pull-ups and I can't even do a 3-second arm hang. And I'm like, he has abs.
What sit-ups did you do in a minute? I mean, do you know that one?
What's that?
The sit-ups in a minute? Did you?
Oh yeah, all that. The stretching. Like I couldn't do any of that. And I'm like, how come these? I just must not be able to do that because these kids have abs and they're skinny and I'm not. And that's just how I am. And so I went my whole life thinking my body just wasn't capable of doing that. And then finally, eventually, in my effort to lose weight, I tried running, I tried all sorts of stuff, and nothing was working. And I found the P90X program.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, man, that thing looks cool. People are getting results from it. I could do it in my room. Like, I'm going to give it a go. It seems really structured. It seems to make sense. And it took me 2 rounds of it. So it took me 180 days. And the first 90 days, I wasn't really sticking to the nutrition. But once I really dialed in the nutrition and was actually able, because I couldn't even do most of the workouts for the first 90 days. My feet couldn't lift off the ground for a pull-up. I was like, ground zero. But the second 90 days, I was really crushing it. And by the end of it, I'd lost 80 pounds. And I had like the after picture. Like I had a little beach body, a little 6-pack. I wasn't like big, but I was lean and defined. And I was like, oh my God, like it was a real eye opener for me. Like if you just get the right information and work really hard, what you thought was impossible is actually totally feasible.
Bingo.
And so that was a huge, like, what else can I do? And then I just kind of was like, all right, well, what's next? And I got into the gym and just started weightlifting. And I found a great website called T Nation. And they have some good supplements, but they also have just an incredible amount of articles, like thousands of articles on all aspects of training and like really intelligent articles, not just like gym bros, like scientists, doctors, like really intelligent stuff. And I was just devouring the content. And they also have forums where people can, just forums. And I started looking at some natural bodybuilders prep logs of like people that would go through competition. And I was reading them and what they go through. And I was looking at their pictures and I just thought to myself, like, I think I can do that. I think I can do that. And it wasn't because I needed it or because I had like, at least I don't think, like self-esteem issues. It was just like that represents the ultimate peak of this kind of physical transformation that I'm going through. And I felt like I had to do it to prove I could do it. Even if I didn't win, it wasn't about winning. It was just like, I just want to do my best and get on stage and do something I never, ever thought I was capable of. And that was really what drove me. Now, I am a competitive guy, and of course I did want to win. But the reality is bodybuilding is a completely offensive sport. You have no idea who's showing up or how long they've been doing it. And since you can't, cap knees going on stage, it's offense only. And it's it's a one person, it's you and your coach. That's it. You're competing against yourself every day, mentally and physically. And when every fiber of your being is telling you to stop what you're doing, stop exercising, go eat food, and you say no, like you're fighting hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. That is really a serious journey. And so after that, and after, I got last place at my first show, my tan was literally melting off. I had no idea how to do the tan. It was so bad, dude. I'm posing on stage melting. But I just leveraged that experience and I got better and better. Because I was like, and it wasn't because I want to win. It was because I know there's more I can do. I can learn from the mistakes I made. I can come in better. And then my second year competing, I won all my shows and I was like, all right, I need a break now. But I never felt the need to compete again because I don't need it as part of who I am. I got out of it what I needed in terms of the journey and the development. I still live the bodybuilder lifestyle. I train, I eat well. But it's like, man, once you can do that, you can do anything, dude. Like anything is easier than that.
So I think there's a lot of truth to that. And that's why I really wanted to take you down that path, because I don't think that's an insignificant thing. And for you to be able to win all your shows in your second year, that again shows a lot.
Yeah.
What's interesting is, you say that you didn't need it. I don't think you need it now. I think when it happened before, what's really fascinating is that's what allowed you to shift the way you viewed yourself and what your body was capable of, because 100%. You were carrying the narratives of that kid that couldn't escape it, that never had anything work, that couldn't look like the front of a magazine, right?
Yeah.
And yet you buried that truth that you believed by showing what's really true and what's really possible.
Yeah.
And I really want to honor you for even the way that you talked about that, because brother, man, like, I don't think you need it at all. It's beautiful what it served for you in that process. But I know that I coached a woman that had bulimia, eating disorders, all these problems. And she went through a 2-year process to get into a physique competition.
Mm-hmm.
And she won her first competition, which was a complete miracle, got her pro card.
Wow.
And she walked out on stage to the song from The Greatest Showman, This Is Me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it was like her ability to reclaim and re-own her own body image because of what she could demonstrate externally.
Yeah.
And it was truly a manifestation of the shift internally, which is exactly what I heard through you.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. And for sure, no doubt that was part of it, growing up as just getting made fun of like that and just being like, thinking like I'm not capable of that and being like I am. Also transparently, and I've talked about this before, again, being 5'4" as a man, like that's tough. That's tough sometimes, like literally always being the shortest dude in the room.
The reason they have the term Napoleon complex exists for a reason. Like,
right. And I would notice I would get like literally and figuratively overlooked just a lot. Like you're standing in a circle of dudes having a conversation and like, I'm not part of it. And that happened all the time. And maybe it was imperceptible to other people, but I perceive it because I know what's happening to me. And another thing I noticed is once I got healthier and like developed a physique, people just treated me differently. They just, the first time I would meet, there was just almost, I don't know if respect is the word, but just more like taking it seriously. Like if I'm going to teach a group of marching kids, like 300 kids, like I didn't have to ask for their attention. And people just have well, this guy takes care of himself. He must be, like the real deal. And being a short man, height is not going for me. So this is also something that's like, I've kind of become addicted to the results that I get in terms of it's a healthy way to be. I like how I look and that gives me confidence, but it also really helps make a good first impression and just kind of carry some weight when I'm in the business arena.
So I think there's absolute truth to the fact that there's certain looks, certain images, and certain ways that people will perceive or treat differently based on their experience and what the world has taught us. There's so much truth to what you just said.
Yeah.
What I also believe, though, and I have to believe this is also true for you, you energetically showed up differently when you felt good in your own skin.
No doubt about it, 100%. Like I said, it gives, it's like when you wear your power suit or the thing that makes you feel good and that confidence exudes. I feel better about myself.
Correct.
And that confidence comes across in everything. And I have no doubt that you're right, that it absolutely played a huge part in it.
And why I point that out is I want everybody listening to also understand that whether you were heavy when you were a kid, whether you didn't have any money when you were a kid, whatever these old narratives are, like keep in mind that you can keep yourself trapped in that pattern, trapped in your own container. Now, in Rob's case, it was an external physical transformation. But in your case, it could be just an internal shift of understanding with absolute clarity who you are. And I do believe that when you show up authentic and your energy can actually be felt, understood, and delivered, regardless of what you look like on the outside, you're perceived differently. And so what I always like to talk about, Rob, is that perspective is important, but not from the perspective of comparing yourself to other people.
That's right.
I think when you can extract the lessons from other people, it's not about me wanting to be like Rob. It's about what's going to align more for me. And so this constant divide between what the world tells us we should be and should want to do, both in life and in business, versus how we represent ourselves authentically. How do you navigate that integrated balance that exists in every moment of every day with these varying roles and identities with the entrepreneurs that you're helping to allow them to shift to a place where they don't exist from the position of fear? They've applied your massive action and all of your steps and are now feeling and experiencing what it's like to actually believe that it's impossible to fail. Because a mental shift there doesn't translate the same as full embodiment of it. And I'd love to hear how you guide people there.
Yeah. That's really perceptive of you. One of the first things I do when I start working with someone, the first thing we talk about is like, why do you want to do whatever it is that we're doing? And I need a very specific why. And usually the first answer they give is like kind of generic, or we actually have to go a few levels deeper to get there. Because that gives me a better understanding of like, what do they actually need to accomplish in order to get that feeling? So if they, for me, it was, I need to establish a successful enough career in real estate that we're making the income and lifestyle that we need so that, we can spend our time together, not worry about money, and Katie can raise the kids. So like, that was my big why. And so that's what I needed. So I need to get a handle of their why. And then we need to really get a handle of like, what exactly is it that is going to get that we form specific goals. well, I need to make a lot of money. Like, let's be more specific. Like, how much? Like, we have to know when we've gotten there, because you can't realize that you've accomplished something huge if you don't have like a target.
And a lot's all relative and it's not measurable.
Right, exactly, right. And so it comes down to first understanding why they're doing what they're doing and what they really want out of it. And then on just kind of breaking down the framework. And I always kind of along the lines of what you said, it's also about embracing the fact that like, you need to want what you want, and that's great, and shout it from the rooftops, and don't be afraid to, because what you hear, like if your why isn't everyone else's why, don't be ashamed to shout your why from the mountaintops. And there's a lot of, sometimes people might feel judgmental about and there is no right or wrong why. Your why doesn't have to be my why. It's about what do you want and why do you want it? I'm not going to judge you about it. Let's just get you there. And so it's teaching them to have the confidence to say, here's my why, here's the person I want to be. And you can take things from other people. You can say, I love this about Grant Cardone. I love this about Ed Milet, but I don't want to be Grant Cardone. There might be certain character traits or certain things that he does that I want to instill into myself, but I want to be the best version of Rob Stein that I can be. And realizing that that's okay. And like you said, you can't compare yourself to other people, because even if you become the number one person in your industry, there's still going to be different aspects of other people that you're going to say, I wish, right? And so it's really just about gaining the self-confidence in your purpose and realize and ironing out a specific goal so that when we get there, they can realize they've really had that transformation.
What's one specific goal you're working on right now?
Oh gosh. It's like, I got like a billion things popping up here. If I were to say on the forefront, the main thing I'm doing right now is streamlining the many things I'm working on. I have a tendency to be like, this is a really good idea and it's going to benefit me, so I'm going to launch this really big thing. And that's all I'm going to do. And then while I'm doing that, some other opportunity presents itself.
You acquire a few more opportunities.
Right. And so now I kind of feel like I'm at a culmination of where a lot of things have been simmering and they're really coming together. And I'm being more intentional about focusing those opportunities and coming up with better timelines and really limiting myself to working on like 1 to 2 things at a time, while other stuff is still kind of like chipping away at, but it's kind of on the back burner, and coming up with more of a timeline because I tend to move so quickly. I also make very fast decisions, and I'm like, this is going to be a good idea. I'm going to start this thing. And then I can sometimes start feeling overwhelmed because I teach that when you feel overwhelmed, it's because you're too reactive. And when I have too many things going on, I wind up reacting too much. So recently I've just really done some good goal setting on kind of framing out all of the big projects I'm working on and being more intentional about it so I can have a little more time freedom, have a little more mental sanity, and come up with a firmer timeline of things rather than just trying to do so many big things all at the same time with the loose goal of just building it real big.
Yeah. I identify with many of your comments personally. It's one of those things that I like to have a lot going on. I like to be able to have my hands in a variety of different things, and it's a way to express my creativity and my growth mind and all of the ways that I can move through the world. What's really interesting is that I can play 0 instruments except for my voice, and you can play literally every instrument. Yeah. When did music become impactful in your life, and what is your favorite instrument to play?
Cool. Well, trumpet is my fave. That's my, I'm a jazz trumpet player. That's what I got my bachelor's in, and that's what I did for many years. Music has always been integrated in my life. Both my parents were musicians. My mom was like a prodigal piano player. Her mom was a prodigal piano player, played with Gene Kelly and Danny Kaye on the radio. And my dad was also a pro trumpet player. And he was a music teacher for like 2 years before he was like, I can't freaking teach music to elementary school kids anymore. And then he got into real estate. So they never really pushed me on music, though. It was there. I started playing trumpet in 4th grade because my dad's trumpet was in the attic and it was free. So that made sense. And I like that there were only 3 buttons. All the other instruments have so many buttons. I said, I like 3 buttons. And I honestly was always kind of like lukewarm towards it. I never really was into it. Marching band was the thing that lit my passion. Like the marching band activity was like, this is my tribe. This is my people. This is my sport. I want to do marching band forever. And that's where my first business was, in the marching band composition and publication space. And I liked playing jazz, and I went to the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. It was a great jazz school, and they had a 5-year track to education. So I got my trumpet degree and my ed degree. And I liked that because a lot of schools, when you get your degree in education, you don't really play that much. And I liked that I could do both. I got a job teaching elementary and middle school band on purpose, because if I would have been a high school band director working with my marching band, I would not have that's like your whole life when you do that. That's 24/7. So I would not have had the time to build my music business if I was a high school teacher. So being elementary and middle school band, school's over at 3:30, 3:35, I'm out of there. Like, I don't have all that extracurricular stuff. But when you teach elementary and middle school band, you teach all the instruments. So even though trumpet was my major, in college, I still took all my minors. And every day I wound up playing every instrument, because the flute kids would come in and I'd say, here's how to put the flute together. We're going to make a sound, and here's how to put the clarinet together. So the woodwinds, the brass, high to low, all that stuff. I had to teach drums, had to teach the mallets, had to teach beginner guitar. I'm not a good guitar player. So I was always pretty much literally like one step ahead of my students, but they didn't know any better. And so simply by, I had to do it for my job. And then literally every day I would play every instrument for about 30 minutes. So that skill set just kind of developed as a result of necessity. But it's also been really helpful because when I write music for all those instruments, I think it does give me an advantage. And well, I know how that's going to feel. I know how that's going to play. I know what that's going to feel like. So I don't play as much as I used to, but it is, a party trick.
I love
there's an instrument in the house.
Well, I mean, in your case, you could play a trumpet while you're posing, and you could combine some passions and blow minds everywhere you go, bro.
Good, yeah. It's funny. After I won my first show, I did a photo shoot, because the hosts of the show for the winners, they would do a photo shoot at their gym, and you kept all the photos, and then they could use them as promo. So I brought my horn, and there's actually some pretty cool photos of me posing with my trumpet.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm imagining like a flex, like you're like playing like, I mean, again, I didn't do any justice to music or posing. Please forgive my absolute naivety, but, bro, you're awesome. I am curious. Do you have a closing thought for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to the impossible to fail framework. I think there's a lot of self-limiting beliefs out there. And I think it's just a lot of beliefs. And this ties into a lot of what you teach, Brian, is that people have these self-limiting beliefs because of what's been going on in their past or what other people told them their life should be. And again, you might have something to think where you look at someone, you're like, I don't know how they do that. They must just have the thing. They got it. And I don't have it. And I used to think that same thing, really. But the reality is, if you surround yourself with the right people and you get the right education, you really can do anything you want. You really can. And it's not a cliche thing to say, because it's true. And the only keep in mind that those people that you might look at that say that's your dream to get to their level in your industry or personally or whatever you want to do, and realize that they have the same 24 hours in the day that you do. Physiologically, they have the same brain you do. They didn't start massively successful. None of them did. We all start from the same point. So it is possible. And then the only question you have to ask yourself is how. The how is where most people have a hard time, because it's always going to take longer than you think. You're always going to have more obstacles than you think, which is not failures, by the way. It's always going to have to take more sacrifice, more action, more time, more investment of money and time. It's going to test you more. It's going to be harder than you think. But the reality is, if you're willing to get the right education, commit to it, it really is impossible to fail. And so don't let yourself impose your own self-limiting beliefs. If you're willing to put in the work and put in the time, the sky is the limit for you.
We're going to put all of Rob's contact information in the show notes. He is somebody I want all of you to go follow. He's creating quality content. He's a quality human leading with heart. Rob, you have it. And guess what? Everybody watching, so do you. So I want you to remember, as we look back on this episode, that if you can recognize where and how your emotions might convince you that you are not going to make it, that you are going to fail, you can sit with them, understand them, and apply massive action, consistency, and give yourself enough time with those reps and surrounding yourself with people that are ahead of you on the path that you want to walk. They can better identify the trash from your past so that you can identify it and take it out. And that is when you put yourself in a position to not only live your best life, but to realize that whatever you want, however you want to live, and whatever you want to accomplish or impact you want to make, it is impossible to fail given the combination of these things. Rob Stein is showing the world how to do it, and I want to thank you again for being here, brother. It's such a pleasure to be with you, and for everyone else, don't forget to flip your lid and scan your can.